Imagine if 13 angry men could corner the most powerful ruler in the world, force him to sign a document that would strip away his absolute authority, and accidentally create the foundation for every democracy that exists today. Well, that is exactly what happened on a muddy field in England 800 years ago. On June 15, 1215, King John of England found himself trapped between a rebel army and the murky waters of the River Thames at a place called Runnymede, about to sign the most important piece of parchment in human history. John was not exactly what you would call a beloved monarch. His subjects had nicknamed him John Lackland because he had lost most of England's territories in France. He had been excommunicated by the Pope for refusing to accept his choice of archbishop, and he had imposed crushing taxes to fund his disastrous military campaigns. The barons who confronted him that day were not idealistic freedom fighters dreaming of democracy. They were wealthy landowners, furious that the king kept demanding more money and throwing them in prison without trial whenever they annoyed him. What makes this story fascinating is that neither side truly understood they were creating something revolutionary. John thought he was just buying time to regroup his forces, while the barons believed they were simply restoring ancient customs that protected their privileges. The document they hammered out, originally called the Charter of Liberties, contained 63 clauses that covered everything from standardizing weights and measures to regulating fish weirs on the Thames. But buried within this medieval legal jargon were principles that would echo through centuries. The most famous clause, number 13.9, declared that no free man could be imprisoned, outlawed, exiled, or destroyed except by lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land, essentially establishing the concept of due process that protects citizens in courtrooms around the world today. Here is where things get wild, though. John had absolutely no intention of honoring this agreement, and within weeks of signing it, he had convinced the Pope to declare the entire charter null and void, calling it shameful and demeaning. Civil war erupted immediately, and John died the following year, possibly from dysentery, possibly from poison, leaving his 9-year-old son Henry to inherit a kingdom in chaos. If you think modern politics is messy, drop a comment about which medieval power struggle you would want to witness firsthand, because trust me, these guys made Game of Thrones look like a polite tea party. The real magic happened when the regents ruling for young Henry III decided to reissue modified versions of the charter to keep the peace, and suddenly, this emergency political deal became permanent law. Over the following decades, the charter was reconfirmed dozens of times by different monarchs, each time becoming more embedded in English legal tradition. What started as a desperate attempt by medieval nobles to protect their wallets gradually evolved into something much larger. The radical idea that even kings must follow the law. The Magna Carta traveled across the Atlantic in the minds of colonial lawyers and found new life in documents like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, with its fingerprints visible in the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. Today, copies of the original charter are scattered across the globe, with one selling at auction in 2007 for over $21 million, proving that old parchment can be worth more than most people make in a lifetime. Hit that subscribe button if you want to keep exploring how accidental moments in history shape the world we live in today, because there are plenty more stories where medieval politics accidentally created modern freedoms. The next time you hear about due process, trial by jury, or limitations on government power, remember that it all traces back to a furious king, some greedy barons, and a muddy field beside the Thames where nobody realized they were writing the blueprint for democracy itself.